Hey, I'm out here walking today and I'm just continuing to ponder and going to share more about my testimony. And one of the things you'll see is my testimony of entering into the miraculous and entering into the gifts of the Spirit. So my introduction, I guess you want to say. So my second week of being saved, that's when I came to that place of the amazing grace and the whole thing. I mean, if you want to know more, you need to go back and watch the other videos. That's my shameless plug. But just the fact that here I woke up, I was feeling depressed, and I mean really depressed. Sorry about the dogs in the background. To the point where I was thinking about, I guess Deadpool's Unalive. Just that depressed. So, because I used to go through those bouts, and a lot of people didn't know it. So, and then all of a sudden walking outside and going down to the street and walking right to those train tracks and deciding I was going to go south on these train tracks. And for those two things to happen, first of all, to be up at a certain time, second of all, to be on the railroad tracks, deciding to go south, and then the train to cross when it did, just in enough time for me to hear the drums and the bass start tearing it up at the time that it did, and then for me to walk in and for the pastor to have a word of knowledge for me when he did, and then to realize all of this stuff that had happened drew me right to my mother's church, the church that my mother was attending, to the man that led the prayer team that was praying for my salvation, and him not even knowing that the man that he had led to the Lord the week before, the man that he was discipling, was the young man that was lost in Fresno that he was praying for. So that's a miracle. I mean, the odds of all of that happening at the same time are crazy. So that alone, so that hooked in my heart, showing me that there is a God, that there is miracles that happen. And that has been a major thing for me to tell parents that, you know what, don't stop praying for your kids, because my God will work things out and set some craziness up for your kids to be saved. If you've got a wayward spouse, keep on praying. And I was so strongly introduced to intercession at that moment in time. And I've got faith now because of that. Because of that, I look at that and I'm going, you know what? God can do anything. I mean, God can work crazy situations out. And I'm going to pause right here because I want to tell you, I've been praying for salvation for certain family members. And I'm going to talk to you. I wasn't going to talk to you about this, but I'm going to talk to you about intercession. Believe in faith. The scripture says, the effectual fervent prayers of a righteous man availeth much. As you can tell, I memorized that in the King James. But you know what? If you're the groanings, if you are praying for the salvation of a loved one, contend. And I'm going to put the scripture in the description, but contend. And you know what? Do not let any circumstance crowd your mind out to set unbelief in. Because you know what? I have watched God do craziness. Like I said, you saw all the circumstances of what happened with me. And there's even more that I'm going to tell you. Years later, I was praying for a family member that they would come to the Lord. And still praying for that family member. But I watched God. Now check this out. I watched God. We were praying in churches. We were praying and fasting for churches in the valley here. And there was a pastor that was on missions in if you want to call it, they were on mission, or they were visiting or setting up a church I'll say in London, and didn't know that. All I knew was that we were praying in his church, and there was his assistant pastor was there, and we were praying with the assistant pastor there. And I'm going to tell you, okay, I'll give a little bit. The pastor's church that we were praying in was Pastor Daniel Mattioli. And this is good. And I'm praying for the salvation of a family member of mine. And so this Pastor Daniel didn't know any of this. All we knew, we were praying for all we were doing was there praying for their church. So I'm contending for this family member. And I wish honestly that salvation has come, but I'm still praying. So Pastor Daniel is there, and something's going on with his visa, so he can't come back to the States. So while he's in Europe, and we were there praying at his church, he needed some computer stuff set up. So here's the interesting thing. Pastor Daniel goes to this little computer shop in London, and he's sitting here talking to the guy across the counter, and they're just discussing what type of stuff they're gonna need for his church and how to set things up. And Pastor Daniel and this guy, they start having a conversation. Well, he talks to him about he's a pastor, and so he says, "Oh, okay, where are you?" He goes, "My son's a pastor." The guy behind the counter goes, "My son's a pastor." And he goes, "Oh," he goes, "Where are you at?" He goes, "I'm in Medford, Oregon." And all of a sudden the ears start perking up, because the guy behind the counter, this is my dad, by the way. My father is in the computer shop. And my father says, "My son is a pastor in Medford, Oregon." And he says, "Where at?" And he goes, "What's your son's name?" And he says, "Donovan Mason." Well, here's the kicker. My dad goes, "That," and so Daniel goes, "I know Donovan." And so they talked a little bit, and I think Pastor Daniel talked a little bit to him about the gospel. But listen, Pastor Daniel calls me. My dad had called me and talked to me about it. And you know, people think coincidences. Let me tell you what. I'm praying for my dad's salvation. And here we've got God holds the visa over for a pastor that's there to go in to establish a church there, to walk into, and God sets the priority, sets the place for Pastor Daniel to walk into the computer shop that my dad is working in, so that he can establish a place of contact, so that he can establish a point of contact to minister and to share the gospel with my father. Tell me how coincidental that is. Can any of you that are I guess you want to call it statisticians or whatever, that deal in mathematical equations. I mean, I'm in this place so praying and intercessing for people. So you see what happened with me. Set the odds. You tell me what the odds are for, first of all, what happened to me. And then you tell me what the odds are for God to work things like that out. I mean, the statistics and the odds are not in the favor of the atheist or the agnostic or those that don't believe in miracles, to say God's not in the place of doing miracles today. Let me tell you what, I mean, so in my life, at the second week of my journey in God, was understanding that I'm being placed in my mother's church. And so that set something in my heart that said, let me tell you what, I don't care what the odds are against somebody being saved, or God intervening in someone's life, or a miracle needing to happen in someone's life. Me looking at what happened the second week of my journey with Jesus Christ, I will stack the odds in any favor for God. I will say, you know what? I don't care what your hopelessness is. There is always a hope in God. That faith is see, here's the thing. I'm not twisting scripture, but I'm just telling you the way I hold on to scripture. That scripture in Hebrews 11:1 that says faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Let me tell you what. Do you know what I process in my mind? Because of what happened in my life the second week of my journey in Jesus, I say that scripture like this. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not yet seen. Let me tell you, because that is the odds I stand on. I don't care what the world sets the odds against. The odds that I see for is I will always bet on God and prayer. I will always hold on God and prayer. And let me tell you what, walking in faith, that is exactly what you have to do.